Hey YouTube, this is the Art of Prepping. Thanks for joining me today. So when we think about emergency tinder, we need something that's going to be flammable and available out in the woodland, swamp areas, even marsh areas. This would be a good option. This is cattail. The cattail is pretty much available almost year round. It's not always edible year round just because of it could be even more difficult when there's ice and snow to access root systems and stems. But because these seed pods are going to be typically elevated from the ground, like this one was about 5 feet off the ground. Some of them go over 7 feet up off the ground. And what you can do is you simply put pressure on this bundle of seeds. And what you can see, it starts to open up. And so like you see my thumb there, I'm just basically pushing in and this expands out. And so this creates a tinder bundle. Sometimes people call this a cattail down bundle or a fluff bundle, however you want to call it. But it is very flammable. The key thing though about this is that you want to really break it up and air it out. And in this video, I'm going to just basically show you when you don't unfluff it, don't really get it spaced out. It actually does when you light it, it only lights the surface because it's very dense. As you can see, just from that one piece of cattail, I have a massive bundle here. And this could actually be, like once again, fluffed to introduce oxygen and more surface area for the flame. You could also mix this with other tinders. That's what I would actually do in an emergency. I wouldn't just rely solely on cattail down to create a fire. But as you can see here, this is just with a match. When it's not fluffed, it just basically the flame goes over the top. Now this is with a lighter, and you'll see that once again it catches very well. And so I'm just showing you some examples here. With the lighter, though, you can pretty much sustain it. You kind of have to either blow on it to introduce more oxygen to the surface or just touch and go from time to time with your lighter. Of course, I didn't put any other type of tinder on top of it until now. Just showing you, though, that it's very flammable, especially when it's dry, and they typically are dry. Cattails are in a lot of places in the United States and around the world. Where I live, though, they're everywhere. And so it is pretty much, besides like maybe some bark, and if you can find dry leaves and low, limbs and stuff that you could actually break up or twigs, this might be one of the easiest ways to access. Even if there's ice, it might be easier to actually break the ice off of one of these cattail, pods, if you will, than maybe a tree that's covered with ice. So year round, this can be a good tinder source, especially in an emergency. As you can see, I'm just kind of playing around with the fire. I am blowing on it a little bit. You can't really see that, obviously, but I'm kind of moving it around, introducing more surface area, more oxygen to it. And you can get a lot of burn time, believe it or not, off of this. The only thing I really have mixed in a little bit is just some dried leaves. But even some of these leaves were kind of damp, and they were not all dry. And so it's just something that I just wanted to also kind of show you how much of this cattail down was in that one pod. It's a very large amount. I mean, you could probably just grab one or two when you see them if you're out and about hiking, and just put them in your waist pack or a backpack. If you have maybe just some pockets in your jacket, just put a couple in there, and just in case you need a tinder source to go with other tinder that you may find. And that's what I would do. And I think that's what's recommended is when you're walking and when there isn't an emergency, to start gathering things. It could just be a handful of thin, dry twigs. It could be a couple of these cattail pods, if you will. And there's like 30 different species of cattail. So, there's a lot of variances in some of the sizes. Once again, this is something that was local. This one was found about 5 feet up next to a pond. There were others that were like 6 and 7 feet up. So the cool thing about these elevated pods is that they're going to be above the snow line typically in most areas. And even if they get some ice on them, you can still remove the ice, and you'll have hopefully dry Tinder underneath. They're fairly, water resistant for the most part. And so cattail can also be eaten. Some of the stems at different parts and times of the year, and the root systems, which typically would do better if you boil them. But they're very difficult to get out when there's ice on the ground and the ground is frozen. So it's not really the most accessible food source. But for Tinder, it's great. And as you can see, it's something that actually holds embers, believe it or not. It's easy to restart within a few minutes, and you can see right now it's pretty much dwindling out, but you'll see in a moment that just by introducing a little bit more oxygen to it, when I get down closer to the ground and start blowing on it, it starts to flash back up. So, once again, if you got a little tree bark, a little bit of leaves, some twigs, some of this cattail, and you kept it in a pouch, maybe you brought a few other more commercial types of tinder. Maybe it could just be some cotton balls with Vaseline. It could be just other things that you might think of. I think it would be a good way to add, the natural with the man-made. And overall, this is also something that especially if you came across a large amount of it, like I did recently, you could easily find enough to stuff a pillowcase, or maybe even enough, and really, if you have a lot of time on your hands, to make a sleeping pad, but at least enough for a nice, comfortable pillow. And so, I mean, you can do a lot with this, bedding, fire tinder. You could even use this to pad your backpack, or to create some kind of way to dampen or soften impact on certain more sensitive pieces of gear. You could put this as part of the cushion. It's very soft and comfortable. So I just wanted to show you this. There's a lot of burning time and capabilities with Cattail. Thanks for watching.